In this video, we are finding faults with our paddling technique on stand-up paddleboards. We will later be finding more thorough solutions to these, but in the meantime, I hope you find this informative, interesting, and I hope that you find it helpful with your own paddling technique development. A paddling stroke is cyclical, but we're going to choose to call the catch the start of the stroke. This is where the paddle has finished moving forwards and the blade is inserted into the water. A good catch is when the blade is fully immersed before the power phase is applied. This needs to happen because then the paddler has resistance to pull against. If the blade is not fully in the water and the power phase is applied, the paddler doesn't have anything really to pull against. The blade moves backwards partially through the air and the board does not travel forward as fast and as far as it otherwise would for each stroke. Debbie initiates her catch by applying her drive phase. So the drive phase is the pulling of the blade backwards towards the feet. Really, we want the blade to be entering the water just as it's finishing moving forward. So the blade is fully buried before we start to move it back towards our feet. If we move it back towards our feet before the blade is buried, we start to miss the front part of the stroke, the most valuable part of the stroke. So if you watch Debbie here, although the blade goes in quite far forward, it's not fully buried until at least halfway through the stroke. So she is not making the most of her stroke length. Andy also needs to work on his catch. He is pulling his blade backwards before it's buried, a bit like Debbie. But if you look at Andy's body position at the catch, you can see that his left-hand shoulder here gets right above his right-hand shoulder at the catch. So there's a really nice body twist, so he's getting more length in his stroke by doing so. His top hand is quite close to his head, which means that helps to angle the paddle further forward as well, adding to his stroke length. What we now need to do is to work on that paddle entering the water before it starts to move backwards. So these technical changes are going to create more speed without an athlete having to actually up their training regime. Andy has quite a nice bend in his top arm with his hand quite close to his head at the catch. So there's quite an acute angle at that point between his shaft and the water. That means he has a longer stroke. Debbie, on the other hand, her top arm is pretty much straight at the catch, so that makes her paddle shaft more vertical, shortening her stroke. Andy seems to fall quite nicely forwards at the catch onto his blade, whereas Debbie's sending the weight backwards through her hips, and by doing so she's pulling her blade backwards before it's buried, therefore shortening her stroke. So she'll need to learn to basically fall onto her paddle at the catch to make sure it's fully buried before the power phase. Visualize where to place your paddle at the catch. Imagine there is a fish swimming alongside you in the same direction as you. It's up towards the front of your board and you want to spear it with your paddle. To spear it, you would need to keep your paddle moving forwards and produce a downwards motion at the same time. However, if you apply the power phase too early, you're going to start raking your paddle backwards as it enters the water, and you're not even going to hit the tail of that fish. So, when you're next paddling, think about that fish and think about what you have to do to try and spear it as you move forwards. Andy is not producing that downwards and simultaneous forward motion with the blade of his paddle here. You can see as he approaches the catch, the blade wavers slightly and then descends into the water, but at the same time moving backwards, so he would be missing that imaginary fish at the moment. Debbie is closer to spearing that fish because her power phase is being activated later. Her blade is moving forwards and downwards towards that catch in a much better motion. Next we'll work on the bend in her top arm, wanting her hand to be closer to her forehead, thus allowing the blade and shaft to be raked further forward at the catch, thus producing a longer stroke. To help Andy produce a good catch, we've got him doing a drill here to produce forward splash. His blade is descending downwards towards the catch and it's going down and in whilst it's still moving slightly forwards. The forward splash is proof of that. It also proves that he is not pulling the blade backwards before it's fully buried. So here he has a much better chance of spearing that fish which is ahead of him beside his board, if you can imagine that. Here's a close-up view of Andy's blade, and this is a bit later on in the session, but he's still maintaining that nice early application of his catch, and at times he is doing it whilst the blade is still moving forward, so he's made a really good change. Like Andy and Debbie, Katia is applying her dry phase a bit too early. The weight is being sent back through the hips and downwards prior to the blade being buried in the water. So what we'll look is to try and teach her to allow her weight to fall forwards and downwards onto that paddle at the catch, pushing the blade into the water before applying her dry phase. As previously said, the paddling stroke is cyclical, so when you make a change to one part of it, it's going to affect other parts. So at that moment, you might feel like you're going slower when you're trying to change your technique, which is perfectly normal. We've only looked at one aspect of the paddling stroke, and that's the catch. Future videos will look at other areas of the stroke, but in the meantime, happy paddling, and you'll see more from us soon.